Vassup, boys and girls? Ist me, your favorite little kitten in the whole wide Wunden. Ren, beat the two ends. So get your pish bucket ready and throw on your favorite Hitler shirt, because it's time for my review of Wolfenstein 2. So I loved Wolfenstein The New Order to death. And you know, it caught me off guard. What I expected to be just another generic first-person shooter actually turned out to be one of my favorite games of that year. So naturally, I was very excited for the new Colossus. I had some pretty high expectations for this game, and it's been a rough year for AAA video games. Most of the games that I was really excited for wound up being really disappointing. And I'm very happy to say that Wolfenstein, the new Colossus, not only met my expectations, but exceeded them. So to catch you up to speed, Wolfenstein the new Colossus picks up right where the first one left off, in the 1960s in an alternate reality where the Nazis won World War II, and you play as B.J. Blazkowicz. And it's up to you to lead the resistance to victory by tearing down the Nazi regime. Now that story might sound kinda cliche and boring, but trust me, it's anything but. I'll talk more about the story later, but right now I'm gonna be talking about the gameplay, which is fantastic. This game feels great. It runs at a smooth 60 frames per second, and nothing beats dual-wielding two shotguns, running down a hallway, spamming the triggers as you lay into those Nazis, watching their arms and legs fly off as they're screaming for their lives. And part of what makes killing those Nazis so exhilarating is the fact that this game is pretty difficult. At least it is on the hardest difficulty, which is what I play pretty much every game on. And I'll be honest with you, this game was pretty tough. Partly because the AI is pretty good. If you stay behind one piece of cover for too long, those Nazis will be all over you like brown on shice. The enemy AI will do everything they can to take you down. I was constantly getting flanked, grenaded, bum rushed, and bamboozled. The enemies in this game are no joke. If you make a mistake or expose yourself for a little bit too long, when the enemy gets a beat on you, they will kill you just as fast as you can kill them, even if you have full health and full armor. Because of this, you're constantly on your toes, constantly having to make decisions, move from cover to cover, react to the enemy's flanks, and it keeps you engaged with the game. But if running and gunning into every encounter is not your thing, then maybe being a sneaky Susan is more your style. Because the stealth in this game is pretty decent too. You can't mark enemies like you can in virtually every other game out there, which I think is a good thing. You gotta scout the enemies out yourself and try to remember which path they take, and then you gotta take into account where all the other Nazis are and what they can see, so that you can more properly plan out your approach. I don't like it in games when you get to mark all the enemies and then you can see them through walls and stuff, because it just makes the encounters a little bit too easy, I think. And in this game, the AI is alert enough so that when you do complete an entire section without being seen, you feel accomplished and satisfied. And I never got sick of throwing hatchets at those unsuspecting Nazis. There's something about that that's just so much fun.
There's a great arm out there, in the air. Look at that! On a fly! One out!
Tune on the highlight shows tonight. You're going to see this. Come on!
A lot of AAA games these days have really bad, boring, or grindy upgrade trees. I'm going to use Ghost Recon Wildlands as an example, because it had one of the worst upgrade trees I have ever seen. I mean, look at this crap. You have to purchase an upgrade that'll allow your squad mates to shoot at an enemy you marked. You know, the Zulu skill. It's a skill that you've literally had from the beginning of every single Ghost Recon game, since GRAW. You're seriously telling me that I have to collect a bunch of gasoline and food and XP points before I'm able to unlock an ability that should have already been unlocked the moment I booted up this game? An ability that allows my professionally military trained squad mate to pull his trigger? You're stupid, Ubisoft. But luckily enough, both Wolfenstein games have what are quite possibly some of my favorite upgrade trees. Not only are most of the abilities and upgrades that you can unlock genuinely exciting to work for and worth having, but they aren't locked behind an arbitrary amount of XP you need to grind for before you can unlock them. You want to get more stealth perks? Well then just be stealthy and those perks will unlock naturally. Want to carry more ammo? Well then dual wield your guns and go nuts. This game rewards your playstyle by giving you more perks within your preferred playstyle, while at the same time making you feel more productive and efficient by adding in a little metagame and engaging you into the experience even more. Like, oh, I need more dual wield kills? I'll just dual wield these guns for a little while and try to get some headshots, which will then unlock a separate perk. And then, when I'm low on ammo with these guns, I'll switch over to my Storm Gewehr, swap it to the single shot fire mode, since I do 50% more damage when I aim down sights. And I'll just use this for a while until I collect some more ammo so that I can start going crazy again. It's good stuff. And by the end of the game, I had nearly every perk unlocked, and I felt like a total badass. I could feel the difference. I was able to breeze through entire sections that would have given me a lot of trouble earlier on in the game. Now, as much as I loved the last Wolfenstein game, it really wasn't perfect. It did have a couple of missteps, which they improved upon in this game. So for example, in the New Order there's this one mission where you get to go to the moon. Not just the moon, but the motherfucking moon, right? But they don't really do anything with this level. It's a neat environment, don't get me wrong, but it's a bit of a missed opportunity gameplay-wise. Because the moon level is pretty similar to every other level in the game. They didn't add in a new mechanic with low gravity or anything like that, and it felt like it could have been a little better. It felt a little lacking. But in the new Colossus, they made sure to rectify that right out of the gate. Because at the very beginning of the game, BJ is in a wheelchair, like me, after Uncle Frank is all finished with me. But this wheelchair section is really neat because it stands out from the rest of the game. And it's a statement from the developer, telling us that they listened to the criticism given to them and used it to make their game better. Plus, smashing a Nazi's head against your wheelchair feels like Christmas. And Wolfenstein 1 also had some incredibly tedious boss battles. Some of these bosses had so much health that I literally ran out of ammo while trying to kill them. They were spongy beyond belief. But in Wolfenstein 2, while the bosses are still difficult, if you're smart with your ammo and your guns, you can take out the bosses with relative ease. And the level design in this game is pretty great too. It kinda reminds me of Dishonored a little bit, because there's a lot of paths for you to choose between. And there's some additional paths that accommodate certain abilities that you unlock later on in the game. It gives you a lot of choices for being stealthy, and a lot of escape routes for when things get out of hand. They also hide a ton of worthwhile goodies in some real obscure locations, which means it's always very beneficial to explore the environment. I spent a really decent amount of my time just exploring the environments, picking up collectibles, and actually reading them. And I never read those stupid little collectibles in any game. They always feel like a waste of my time. I'm looking at you, Gears. I'm not here to read your half-assed, poorly written collectible note. I'm here to play, idiot. But in this game, most of these readables are actually very interesting. They help to build up some of the game's characters, as well as the universe that Machine Games has created. And that's one of the things I love about this game so much. The universe. The atmosphere, characters, and the world that they've created is just incredible. This game has one of the most fleshed out and polished in-game universes I have ever experienced since Metro 2033 and 2034, another game series which I love dearly. The new Colossus is jam-packed with so many great little details and stories, and they go beyond just being in the game too. So check this out. In Wolfenstein 1, they even went as far as to create real-life, fake German propaganda pop songs, written and performed from the perspective of a Nazi-controlled music industry in the early 1960s. And they sounded a little something like this. They even have a fake Beatles band. And to their credit, a lot of these songs sound like legitimate German 60s pop songs. But for whatever reason, these songs aren't featured very prominently in the first game, but just the fact that they exist makes that world feel more believable. But for Wolfenstein 2, they took their fake universe one step further by having trailers for fake movies like Liesel, the timeless story of a little girl and her robot dog, and TV shows like German or Else, the propaganda-filled game show that lets the nation know you had better learn German or else you're gonna get sent to a re-education camp. They even went through the trouble to create a bunch of fake actors and celebrities, like Brian Felt. He's so dreamy. Much better than that hack, Peter Gully. That guy's an idiot, and just between you and me, I hear that he's into chicks that don't have any legs. Yeah, That guy's a total stump humper. But you can really tell that the developers are incredibly passionate about the world that they've created, that they've put so much thought, care, and effort into every detail and aspect of this universe. They do an amazing job of making their world feel real and believable, and making the Nazis feel like a genuine threat, which in turn makes killing those Nazis that much more satisfying. That passion and care trickles into the story as well. You can definitely tell that they're really passionate about all these characters. But don't worry, I'm going to keep the story portion of this video completely spoiler free, because I'm planning on making a discussion video where I talk about the story of this game a lot more in depth, because I feel like there's a lot to go over with this game. But just know that the story for this game is simply amazing. The cutscenes are so well done. The dialogue is witty and memorable, and its characters and story is just written so smartly. This game goes through the trouble of setting something up so that it can pay it off, which is something you really don't see too often in a video game. And characters are given more backstory. Like, we learn so much more about BJ. We really get to understand why he is the way that he is. And almost every character in this game has an arc of some sort. Even Max Haas, the guy who's missing half his head, the guy who only has the mental capacity to say his own name,
Max Haas,
has a whole lot more personality than a pretty decent amount of video game characters. Like the main character guy from Shadow of War. I mean, who is this guy? I don't even know his name. He's nothing. He's boring. You take away Stephen Hawking's laptop, and that's this guy right here. He's a fucking vegetable. I don't know how else to say it. But where the story for Shadow of War made me feel absolutely nothing, Wolfenstein 2 actually took me through a whole spectrum of emotions. It made me feel sad, and it made me laugh. It shocked me. It got me pumped up. It made me giggle with glee. It warmed my heart, and it even scared me a little bit. It kept me engaged from start to finish, and I did not want to put the controller down. Every good game has at least one memorable moment or piece of dialogue that sticks with me well after I've completed the game. In the first Wolfenstein, for whatever reason, it was this line right here.
Akovich, can you hear me? What's your status?
well, I'm on the motherfucking moon.
And how could you forget this part, where you sneak up behind a Nazi and you just start drowning him in his own urine before you stab him in the back of the head and flush the toilet like a gentleman. But Wolfenstein 2 is just chock full of memorable moments, lines of dialogue, and events that I will remember for years to come. I love this game, and I cannot speak of it highly enough. It's one of the only 3 games I bought this year, and I definitely feel like I already got my $60 worth. And I still have a ton of side quests and activities to complete, and I gotta give praise to the fact that Wolfenstein 2 is a complete package. It's a game that shipped as a finished product. There's no microtransaction garbage, there's no game-breaking bugs. In fact, the game is very polished, because it's shipped in a complete state. The whole entire game is right there on the disc. It's done. And in today's day and age, that's just far too rare. I mean, sure, there is some DLC coming at some point, but that doesn't make me upset, because the upcoming DLC clearly did not detract from the main game. The story ended with a satisfying conclusion, and I never felt like there was any cut content or cut corners or anything like that. So with all that being said, I would absolutely recommend both Wolfenstein the New Order and Wolfenstein the New Colossus. These are 2 great games that I would highly recommend you to play. I cannot praise this game enough. I look forward to going back and playing it all over again, which is why I gotta give Wolfenstein the New Colossus my first ever 10 out of 10.
Change over day, make sure you know the date. After the 4th of July, be careful what you say. Change over day for the Nazi USA. We all know that German is much better anyway. T-H&E is silly, can't you see? Der, die und das, defined language can be Spaß. German is more accurate with what you want to say. We all know that English is confusing anyway. Change over day, make sure you know the date. After the 4th of July, be careful what you say. Change over day for the Nazi USA. We all much better anyway.